The ANC has a year to heal the alliance, revive its youth wing and claw back the moral high ground amidst accusations of corruption.
Things are going to change.
The EFF had only months to prepare for the 2014 poll. Now they have time to plan a robust campaign. This could make them stronger or prove their undoing if disgruntled members choose to leave the party.
Today, 1.5 million more people have lost their jobs.
And the Democratic Alliance, as the official opposition, will have to navigate the challenges the EFF presents while grappling with internal debates over who will lead the party when Helen Zille goes. Olim Gambi, Johannesburg.
2014 was also a big year for our courts, with high-profile murder trials and our judiciary in the world spotlight. We'll look at that next. Stay with us. We are looking back at the top stories of 2014. Let's take a look now at our courts. And it was a year we all became amateur lawyers as the nation watched live court proceedings at the Oscar Pistorius murder trial. But the trial of the famous Olympian for the death of his girlfriend was not the only important case before the courts. 2014 saw our judicial system handling everything from check fugitives to the house of horrors.
Live television cameras inside the Oscar Pistorius murder trial was a first for the South African justice system. And on the back of that, British businessman Shrien Diwani was brought here after 4 years of fighting extradition efforts. Both these cases were high profile and expensive. In 2013, the township of Diepsloot in the north of Johannesburg made headlines after 3 toddlers were raped and murdered within 2 months. Their bodies were found dumped in a rubbish heap and in a public toilet. In November 2014, thanks to the community, Ntokozo Khadebe was arrested, tried, convicted, and sentenced to 9 life terms and 15 years imprisonment for the murders. But even now, Diepsloot remains largely troubled despite the court victory. This bridge, built in response to extreme summer flooding, connects Diepsloot's informal settlements. But instead of helping residents, it's now become dangerous, with regular muggings and shootings. Residents are still suspicious of police and have formed their own community patrols. But even those don't guarantee safety.
They're also believing in mob justice, whereby when they caught you red-handed, they believe in banning or killing you.
Earlier this year, South Africans woke up to another gruesome child abuse story, this time in Springs, Ekurhuleni. A man and his wife had allegedly assaulted and held their 5 children captive in their home for several years. The terror only ended when one of the kids escaped and alerted a neighbor, who then called the police. When authorities visited the home, it was infested with lice and rats. Feces covered the floor. There were mountains of pornographic material and instruments police believe were used to torture and abuse the minors. But unlike in Diepsloot, neighbors who knew of the horrors in this house preferred not to get involved. They say out of fear.
So when the police were here, the child was in your room?
Yeah.
And
why did you hide him? Why not? I mean, the police were there. You could have said something.
Yeah, we could have said something, yes, but we are all terrified of. We know what he's capable of.
The Springs father is currently behind bars, while the mother is out on bail. Their trial is set to begin in the new year. Czech fugitive Radovan Krejčí is another familiar face in court. In fact, he was arrested and detained upon his arrival into the country on a false passport. Krejčí famously told journalists upon his release that at the time he loved South Africa because it has the best constitution in the world.
I think he abuses the South African justice system. I don't think he uses it. When he made that statement, he'd just been released after an application was made by the Czech government to extradite him to the Czech Republic. When he said he loves South Africa because of the constitution, what he really meant was he loves South Africa because you can pay your way out of jail, and that's exactly what he did. And I think during the course of next year we're going to start seeing the people that he paid to get out of jail being brought themselves into the criminal justice system.
Krejčí fled the Czech Republic in 2005. According to him, it was because he had fallen out of political favor with his government, which resulted in him receiving an 8-year jail sentence for fraud. He then took refuge in the Seychelles, before opting for South Africa. In 2012, he was arrested on charges of kidnapping and attempted murder in connection with an alleged drug deal gone wrong. That trial is ongoing and he's currently behind bars. But he's still a security threat. During his incarceration, Krejčí was caught with contraband in his cell.
How far does the criminal empire stretch? I've just posted 100,000 Rand reward for the arrest and conviction of the prison officers that have colluded with Radovan Krejčí in bringing cell phones into prison. Now, I've done that because the ability of Radovan Krejčí to have communication with the outside world has led to no fewer than 3 attempts on my life this year. So I feel it's better that we now deal with the dirty prison officers that are helping him to get those cell phones into prison. And unfortunately, the criminal justice system still needs a lot of cleaning up.
Krejčí will continue his legal battles next year. He's also facing separate charges of conspiracy to murder O'Sullivan and an SAPS detective investigating his cases, Colonel Killer Klimba. The Czech fugitive is also using the law to try and get the South African government to grant him political asylum or refugee status. But despite several court cases in the public domain, South Africans' understanding of the justice system is, in some instances, limited.
In South Africa in 2014, South Africans learned much about court proceedings. Whether or not they got to know how the justice system works is a slightly different question, and I don't think that South Africans necessarily have a greater understanding of the system. Because in order to understand the system, you must understand the philosophical principles that underpin the system. And none of those have really been discussed at length in the public, either by experts or by lay people.
2014 wasn't a great year for the South African justice system. A number of high-profile cases drew strong criticism. But hopefully lessons have been learned and the country can look forward to a more stable 2015. Narissa Subramani, Johannesburg.